So Joint Compound is kind of a weird one, as it basically started out as a GTA type with combat that played similar to Infamous with the blending of melee and range. And the story worked for this concept because it starred three convicts who were staying in this future version of New York City, and the surrounding states have just been turned into one big super prison. And then they escaped. And so it's about them being on the run and like taking up underworld jobs or whatever to like get their lives back together. Now, since it's an open world, the time thing wouldn't really make any sense because it'd be like, hey, these guys are just running around and the cops who are looking for them aren't going to find them. Which led me to restructure the game into this more episodic adventure. And by episodic, I mean like 26 episodes of like a TV show, each chunk being about 30 minutes long of pure gameplay. Now, it'd be very cinematic in terms of presentation. You're basically like playing an episode of this person's life. So it's kind of like Uncharted ish, but the control is never taken away from the player. So it's more like Half Life in that way. So, like each episode, you control a different main character as they do something in the grander scope of the narrative. And all the conversations, all the different combat maneuvers they do, you do every little bit of it. And I also added in the cops who were pursuing them. And this mysterious guy who has these weird clockwork eye things, which I initially came up with because I saw the poster for Notorious and thought that that's what those were, and not just really fancy sunglasses. Who is a crime boss, and of course, is the reason why all three of those guys are behind bars. So on our convict side, we have the typical edge lord. I'm really cool, but I'm really powerful, and they put me in prison because I'm a weapon type guy who's got this robotic arm, and he has this like lightsaber they can pull out and just chop dudes up with. This other guy who's like this really good marksman, and he got framed. Yeah, he got framed by Clockwork Dude and was put in prison. And the last guy's this essentially like he's the black guy. Saw an image of him, I thought of the guy on the cover of Grand Theft Auto, and just gave him a big trench coat and a katana that he kept in it, like in Highlander. And he too was wrongly put in prison because he's like the good guy who makes it out, and he just wants to be with his family. And he's like, I ain't got time for this shit. I'm sorry if that impression's kind of racist. And then on the cop side, I didn't really go too much in the personalities, but they're design wise, two of them are literally Gene and Jim from Outlaw Star, and the third guy is Snake from Metal Gear Acid 2. And so their missions are like typical cop stuff, like drug busts and trying to find these escapees. And of course, all their stories interconnect, and Clockwork Eye is behind everything. And it ends with some conclusion, and there's a nuke that blows up the city. But the fact is, since I have so many characters now, and the story is episodic, I can kind of do whatever I want with it, which means not everyone's going to make it out alive. Stylistically, it was originally supposed to be like kind of realistic, more like but with like some fantastical elements. But then later on, I wanted to incorporate this the way that Metal Gear Solid 2 handled their blood splatter. Like in that first cutscene when the Genome soldier stabs one of the guys and like he pulls the knife out and like the blood just like shoots out of him like in Kill Bill. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I gotta incorporate that. But it didn't really fit. So I kind of redesigned everything to be more comic booky, more jagged, more like The World Ends With You, so that everything would fit and there'd be a greater sense of style. And plus, it'd be easier to do individual levels with this rather than a big open world, because then you can direct the player experience. Shooting would be very simple, it'd basically just be Max Payne. And the melee combat would be, I wouldn't say Devil May Cry ish. And it's not Arkham, because Arkham hadn't come out yet when I conceptualized this. So it'd be more like maybe those Spider Man games? Being a cartoon is really weird. I don't know why I decided to do this. This was way too much work. Although there is one upside of being 2D. Excuse me for a moment while I do something. Ah.